I never told my billionaire CEO ex-husband about our son until the boy needs his rare blood type. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. Beckett Rhodes. That voice. God, that voice I had tried so hard to forget for 6 years. Deep, confident, with that slight rasp that used to undo me completely. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I couldn't speak. The words were stuck in my throat, trapped behind 6 years of pain, and pride and the desperate fear that gripped my chest like a vice. Hello? Who is this? I forced air into my lungs, forced myself to say the name I had sworn I would never speak to him again. Beckett. It's Sloan. Silence. Complete, absolute silence that stretched so long I thought the connection had died. Then his voice came again, barely a whisper, loaded with 6 years of questions and longing and disbelief. Sloan Harper, I can't believe it's really you. Where are you? Where have you been? I searched everywhere. I hired investigators. I tried to find you. I don't have time to explain. I'm Seattle Children's Hospital, and I need your help. You're hurt? Are you okay? What happened? I'm fine. But Beckett, I have a son. He's 8 years old and he's dying. He needs a blood transfusion with an extremely rare type, and you might be the only person who can save his life. Another silence. Different this time. I could almost hear the wheels turning in his mind, calculating the timeline, piecing together what I was really telling him. 8 years old. His voice had changed, becoming deeper, more intense. Sloan, are you telling me what I think you're telling me? Is he mine? The question hung between us like a detonation. I closed my eyes, tears finally spilling down my cheeks as I looked at Theo's unconscious face on the hospital bed. A face that was an exact replica of his father's. Yes, I have a son. The words broke on his lips. I have an 8-year-old son who's dying, and I didn't even know he existed. Beckett, I can explain everything later, but right now, he needs you. Can you get to Seattle Children's Hospital immediately? I'm already walking to my car. What's his name? Theo. His name is Theodore Harper. Theodore. He repeated the name like a prayer, like something sacred he was holding for the first time. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Sloan, hold on. Both of you just hold on. Have you ever had to swallow your pride to save your child's life? Have you ever kept a secret so massive that revealing it could destroy everything you've built, but staying silent could cost you everything that truly matters? This is the story of how one phone call forced me to face the man who shattered my heart and tell him the truth that would change 3 lives forever. What I didn't know was that this medical crisis would unravel secrets even darker than the one I had been hiding. And if you believe in the power of second chances and the sacrifices we make for the people we love, then stay with me, because this story will take you on an emotional journey you won't forget. Let me take you back to where this impossible day began. The fluorescent lights of Seattle Children's Hospital burned into my retinas as Dr. Patterson delivered the words that shattered my carefully constructed world. I was standing beside Theo's bed, my hand gripping the metal rails so tightly my knuckles had gone white. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor was the only sound that told me my son was still alive. Miss Harper, your son's blood type is exceptionally rare. AB negative with the Bombay phenotype variant. We've contacted every blood bank in the Pacific Northwest, and we haven't found a compatible donor. Dr. Patterson was in his 50s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. But right now those eyes held a gravity that made my stomach drop. He was a man who had delivered bad news to parents before. He knew how to be gentle while telling you your world was ending. There has to be someone. My voice came out as a whisper. Someone, somewhere who matches. We're still searching, but I need you to be realistic about the timeline. Your son's condition is critical. Without a transfusion in the next 40 to 8 hours, his organs will start to fail. I looked down at Theo, my beautiful, brilliant 8-year-old boy who asked questions about quantum physics and built elaborate structures out of Legos and still wanted me to read him bedtime stories every night. His face was pale against the white hospital pillow, so pale he looked like a ghost of himself. Dark lashes rested against cheeks that should have been flushed with the energy of childhood. Not drained by this mysterious blood disorder that had activated without warning. 4 lines ran into his small arm, delivering fluids and medications that were keeping him stable but couldn't cure what was wrong. The machine surrounding his bed beeped and hummed, a symphony of medical technology that felt both reassuring and terrifying. "Miss Harper, I need you to think very carefully." Dr. Patterson's voice was gentle but insistent. "Are there any blood relatives we should contact? Parents, siblings, anyone who might share this extremely rare blood type?" I closed my eyes. The question I had been dreading, the one I knew was coming but had no idea how to answer. "His father. Can you contact him immediately? It's complicated." Dr. Patterson stepped closer to me, his voice dropping to that tone doctors use when they need you to understand the severity of what they're saying. "Miss Sinclair, your son is dying. Complicated doesn't matter right now. If there is anyone who might be a match, we need to contact them immediately." I felt the weight of 6 years of secrets pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. 6 years of telling myself I had made the right choice. 6 years of building a life that didn't include Beckett Rhodes. 6 years of protecting Theo from a world that would have judged him, used him, turned him into a pawn in games he was too young to understand. But none of that mattered now. Not when my son's life hung in the balance. "I'll make the call." Dr. Patterson nodded and left the room, giving me privacy for what he must have known would be a difficult conversation. I sank into the chair beside Theo's bed and pulled out my phone with shaking hands. The contact was still there. I had kept it all these years, even though I had sworn I would never use it. B, do not call. The warning I had given myself, the boundary I had promised never to cross. Until now. I stared at that name on my screen, and suddenly I was 25 again, standing in Beckett's penthouse, listening to him tell me he loved me, while knowing his family would never accept us. I was watching him at those floor-to-ceiling windows, silhouetted against the Seattle skyline like some modern god who had everything except the one thing that mattered. I was reading that newspaper headline about his engagement to Kensington Ashford and feeling my heart shatter into pieces so small I thought I would never be whole again. "Mom?" Theo's voice was weak, barely above a whisper, but it snapped me back to the present. His eyes had fluttered open, those storm gray eyes that were so much like his father's it sometimes hurt to look at them. "I'm right here, sweetheart." I took his hand gently, careful not to disturb the 4 lines. "I don't feel good." "I know, baby. I know, but the doctors are going to make you better. Promise?" The word broke my heart, because I couldn't promise. I couldn't guarantee that I could save him. Not without help, not without calling the one person I had sworn to keep out of our lives forever. "I promise I'm going to do everything I can." I smoothed his dark hair back from his forehead. "You need to rest now, okay? Save your strength." "Okay." His eyes drifted closed again, and within moments his breathing had evened out into sleep. I looked at my phone again. At that contact I had kept like a talisman, a reminder of both the best and worst time of my life. My thumb hovered over the call button. If you've ever had to make an impossible choice between your pride and your child's life, hit that like button right now, because what happens next will change everything. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, or just say I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline. Let me know you're here with me on this journey. I pressed the call button before I could change my mind. 1 ring. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. 2 rings. What would I even say to him? How do you tell someone they have an 8-year-old son they never knew about? 3 rings. Maybe he wouldn't answer. Maybe he had changed his number. Maybe I could hang up and find another way, any other way. Beckett Rhodes. And there it was. That voice that haunted my dreams and my nightmares. The voice that had whispered my name in the dark and told me I was remarkable and promised me things that never came true. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat had closed up completely. "Hello? Who is this?" "Say something, Sloan. Say anything. Beckett." My voice cracked on his name. "It's Sloan." The silence that followed felt like it lasted a lifetime. I could hear him breathing, could almost feel his shock radiating through the phone line. Sloan. He said my name like he was testing whether it was real, whether I was real. "Sloan Harper. I can't believe it's really you. Where are you? Where have you been?" I searched everywhere. I hired private investigators. I contacted anyone who might know where you'd gone. You just vanished. There was pain in his voice, raw and undisguised, and it caught me off guard. I had spent 6 years imagining that he had moved on easily, that I had been nothing more than a brief distraction in his carefully planned life. But he sounded like a man who had been searching, who had cared about my disappearance. I don't have time to explain everything right now. I forced the words out past the emotion choking my throat. I'm at Seattle Children's Hospital. I need to know about your blood type. You mentioned once that you had a rare type, AB negative with some unusual antigen markers. Why are you asking about my blood type? His voice had shifted from shock to concern. Sloan, what's going on? Are you hurt? I'm fine. I closed my eyes, knowing that the next words would detonate like a bomb in both our lives. But Beckett, I have a son. He's 8 years old and he's dying. He needs a blood transfusion with an extremely rare type, and you might be the only person who can save his life. The silence this time was different. Charged, loaded with implications that were slowly sinking in. 8 years old. His voice had gone very quiet, very controlled. The kind of control that told me he was processing something massive. Ember, are you telling me what I think you're telling me? Yes, just one word. But it contained 6 years of secrets, 6 years of running, 6 years of protecting our son from a world that might have rejected him. That's my exact blood type. He sounded like he was struggling to breathe. Sloan, is he mine? Yes, I have a son. The words came out broken, shattered by emotion. I have an 8-year-old son who's dying, and I didn't even know he existed. How could you not tell me? How could you keep this from me? His pain was evident, but there was no time for explanations, no time for the complicated history that had led to this moment. Beckett, I can explain everything later, but right now Theo needs you. Can you get to Seattle Children's Hospital immediately? I heard movement on his end, the sound of a chair scraping, footsteps echoing. I'm already heading to my car. I can be there in 20 minutes. What's his name? Theo. His name is Theodore Harper. Theodore. He repeated it softly, reverently. Tell me about his condition. What exactly is wrong? He has a genetic blood disorder that's been dormant until now. It activated during a stress response. He needs a transfusion from someone with his exact rare blood type, and the doctors haven't been able to find a match in any database. And you think I'm a match because of my blood type? You're the only person I know who has it. I swallowed hard. You told me once that you were on a rare donor list because your blood type was so unusual. I remember. His voice had steadied, shifting into the decisive tone I remembered from business meetings. The tone of a man who could make impossible decisions in seconds. I'm a universal donor for rare types. I've donated before. Sloan, I'm getting in my car now. Which hospital? Seattle Children's. Pediatric ICU, room 418. I'll be there in 20 minutes, maybe less. Beckett. Yes? Thank you. The words felt inadequate for what I was asking, for what he was about to do, for the revelation I had just dropped on him. Don't thank me. His voice was rough with emotion. He's my son. I would do anything for him, even if I'm just finding out he exists. Sloan, we have a lot to talk about. But right now, just hold on. Both of you hold on. I'm coming. The line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone, my hand shaking, trying to process what I had just set in motion. In less than half an hour, Beckett Rhodes would walk through that door. He would see Theo for the first time. He would see his own features reflected in our son's face. And then he would want answers. Answers I wasn't sure I was ready to give. I looked at Theo, sleeping peacefully despite the machines and tubes and the battle his body was fighting. He looked so much like his father, it was almost eerie. The same dark hair that caught the light, the same strong bone structure, the same intensity even in sleep, like powerful thoughts were always moving behind those closed eyes. Oh God, what had I done? For 6 years I had built a wall between our son and his father. I had told myself it was to protect Theo, to shield him from the complications of Beckett's world. But had I been protecting Theo or protecting myself? Had I been keeping Beckett away for our son's sake, or because I couldn't bear to see the man who had broken my heart? The door opened, and Dr. Patterson came back in, followed by a nurse with a clipboard. Miss Harper, we need to prepare for when the potential donor arrives. We'll need to do immediate compatibility testing. If he's a match, we can begin the transfusion right away. How long will the testing take? About 30 minutes for the preliminary results. If everything looks good, we can start the procedure immediately after that. I nodded, trying to focus on the practical details instead of the emotional storm brewing inside me. The donor, Dr. Patterson said carefully. He's the father? Yes. And he's aware of the situation? He is now. Dr. Patterson didn't ask any more questions. He was a professional, and my personal life was none of his business as long as it didn't affect Theo's care. But I could see the curiosity in his eyes, the questions he was too polite to ask. The next 20 minutes felt like the longest of my life. I sat beside Theo's bed, holding his hand, watching the monitors that tracked his vital signs. His heart rate was steady, but his blood pressure was lower than it should be. The numbers on the screen were a constant reminder that we were running out of time. I found myself thinking about the day Theo was born. I had been alone in the delivery room, my parents on a flight from Portland that got delayed by weather. I had labored for 14 hours, gripping the bed rail, refusing the epidural, because some stubborn part of me felt like I needed to feel the pain, like I deserved to feel it for all the choices I had made. And then Theo had arrived, screaming and perfect, with a full head of dark, hair and eyes that would later turn the exact shade of gray as his father's. The nurse had placed him on my chest, and I had fallen completely, irrevocably in love. In that moment, holding my son for the first time, I had known I would do anything to protect him, anything to keep him safe and happy and loved, even if that meant keeping him from his father. But now, watching him fight for his life, I realized that maybe I had been wrong. Maybe in trying to protect him, I had actually deprived him of something he needed. Someone he needed. The sound of a helicopter landing on the roof broke through my thoughts. My heart started racing. He was here. A few minutes later, a hospital security guard appeared at the door. "Miss Harper? There's a gentleman here, asking for you. Says his name is Beckett Rhodes." The guard looked slightly overwhelmed. "He's got quite an entourage with him. Personal assistant, security detail, what looks like a private medical team." Of course he did. Beckett Rhodes didn't do anything halfway. "Send him up to this room. The rest of his people can wait in the family lounge." "Yes, ma'am." The guard left, and I stood up, smoothing down my shirt with trembling hands. I hadn't seen Beckett in 6 years. 6 years of deliberately avoiding any situation where we might cross paths. 6 years of seeing his face only in business magazines and news articles I couldn't help but click on late at night when Theo was asleep, and I was feeling particularly lonely. I moved to the window, unable to look at the door, unable to watch him walk in. Outside, Seattle's skyline stretched endlessly, gray and misty under overcast skies. The same skyline I had looked at from Beckett's penthouse all those years ago, back when I thought love could conquer the vast differences between our worlds. How naive I had been. "Sloan." His voice came from the doorway, and I turned slowly, forcing myself to look at him. He stood in the entrance to the hospital room, and time seemed to stop. He looked exactly the same and completely different all at once. Still tall, still commanding that immediate attention without trying. Still devastatingly handsome in a way that made my breath catch despite everything. But there were differences, lines around his eyes that spoke of stress and sleepless nights. A gravity to his expression that hadn't been there 6 years ago. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, but his tie was slightly askew and his usually immaculate hair showed signs of being pushed back by anxious fingers. He had dressed in a hurry, for our son. His gaze moved past me to the hospital bed, and I watched his entire face transform as he saw Theo for the first time. He took a step forward, then another, drawn to the bedside like a magnet. "Oh my God." The words were barely a whisper. "He looks exactly like me." It was true. Theo had inherited every one of Beckett's features. The dark hair, the bone structure, the set of his jaw, even the way his brow furrowed slightly in sleep, as though he was wrestling with complex problems in his dreams. "He's beautiful." Beckett's voice was thick with emotion. "He's absolutely beautiful. Don't wake him." I said it quietly, but firmly. "He needs to rest." Beckett nodded, unable to take his eyes off Theo. He stood beside the bed, this billionaire CEO who commanded boardrooms and made decisions that affected thousands of lives, looking completely undone by the sight of the son he had never known existed. Then he turned to look at me fully for the first time, and I felt the impact of those storm-gray eyes like a physical force. The same eyes I had fallen in love with. The same eyes that had watched me with desire and tenderness and something I had thought was love. The same eyes I saw every single day in our son's face. 6 years, Sloan. His voice was controlled, but I could hear the anger underneath. "You kept him from me for 6 years. You were engaged to someone else." The defense came automatically, the same justification I had told myself 1,000 times. "I was never engaged to Kensington Ashford." He said it flatly, like a fact. That announcement was my father's manipulation, not my choice. I never proposed to her. I never agreed to that marriage. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? I was never engaged to Kensington. That announcement was released without my knowledge or consent. It was my father's attempt to force my hand, to pressure me into a merger I had already told him I wouldn't agree to. The room seemed to tilt around me, but the newspaper had photos. You were having dinner with her. She was wearing a ring. A business dinner my father orchestrated. Kensington knew the engagement wasn't real. She was playing her part in my father's business strategy. He paused, his jaw tightening. I broke off all ties with my father the day that announcement was made. I don't understand. The day after you disappeared, I sent my father an email telling him I was cutting all business ties with the Rhodes family holdings, that I was starting my own company with my own capital, that I would never marry Kensington Ashford or anyone else he chose, and that if he ever spoke about you with disrespect again, he would never see me or any future grandchildren I might have. He had done that. He had walked away from everything for me. But the articles said you were running the family company. The articles were wrong. Or more accurately, they were printing what my father wanted them to print. I spent 3 years building Rhodes Technologies from the ground up with my own ideas and my own money. Then I bought out my father's interests in his company. We haven't spoken in 5 years. I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. Everything I had believed about why we couldn't be together, everything I had, told myself to justify keeping Theo a secret. It had all been based on a lie, a manipulation by his father that I had fallen for completely. But I heard you talking to him. I heard you that day in your office. He said terrible things about me, and you didn't shut him down. Beckett's expression tightened. What day? What are you talking about? The day of the engagement announcement. I came to your office to resign. I heard you and your father arguing through the door. He called me a gold digger. He said I was using you, that I would destroy everything your family had built, and you just kept arguing about business strategy. You never defended me the way I needed you to. Beckett closed his eyes, pain crossing his features. I was trying to be diplomatic while planning to defy him completely. I was trying to navigate the conversation without making it worse before I could talk to you. I was going to choose you, Sloan. That night, I was going to come to your apartment and tell you everything. Tell you that I had cut ties with my father, that I was starting my own company, that I wanted to build a life with you regardless of his approval. But I never gave you the chance. The realization hit me with devastating clarity. I ran before you could explain. I disappeared before you could choose. You believed him over me. There was hurt in Beckett's voice, raw and undisguised. You believed I would betray you, that I would choose my family's expectations over what we had. Your father was very convincing, and I wasn't worth waiting to hear my side of the story. The accusation hung between us, painful and true. I had run. I had let fear and insecurity drive me away instead of fighting for what we had. And in doing so, I had cost both of us 6 years we could never get back. Before I could respond, Dr. Patterson appeared in the doorway with a nurse and a cart full of medical equipment. Mr. Rhodes, I presume? Beckett tore his gaze away from me, shifting instantly into professional mode. Yes. Dr. Patterson? That's right. We need to get your blood tested immediately for compatibility. Whatever you need. Beckett was already rolling up his sleeve. How is he? What exactly is wrong with my son? My son. The word seemed to settle something in Beckett's expression, making the reality concrete. Your son has a genetic blood disorder that requires immediate transfusion and ongoing treatment. Dr. Patterson began prepping Beckett's arm for the blood draw. The condition is manageable with proper care, and he can live a completely normal, healthy life. But right now, he needs blood that matches his very rare type. And if I'm not a match, then we continue searching. But I have to be honest with you, Mr. Rhodes. Time is critical. Your son's condition is deteriorating. We need to find a donor in the next 24 hours. Beckett's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Then let's not waste any time. The nurse drew several vials of blood, while Dr. Patterson explained the compatibility testing process. Beckett listened with complete focus, asking intelligent questions about Theo's condition, prognosis, and treatment options. This was the Beckett I remembered from business meetings. Focused, analytical, able to process complex information quickly and make decisions under pressure. But his eyes kept drifting back to Theo, to the son he had just discovered, to the 8 years he had missed. How long will the testing take? Beckett asked as the nurse labeled the final vial. About 30 minutes for preliminary results. If you're a match, we can begin the transfusion immediately. What are his chances without a transfusion? Dr. Patterson hesitated, and I knew what was coming. The truth we had been dancing around. Without a compatible transfusion in the next 20 to 4 hours, his organs will begin to shut down. After that, even with intervention, the damage may be irreversible. Beckett's face went pale. He looked at Theo with an expression of such raw fear and love that it made my chest ache. Then we pray I'm a match, because I'm not losing him, not when I just found out he exists. Dr. Patterson nodded and left with the blood samples, taking the nurse with him. And suddenly Beckett and I were alone together for the first time in 6 years, with our unconscious son lying between us. The silence was heavy, loaded with 6 years of unspoken words. What's he like? Beckett asked finally, his voice soft. Tell me about him. I looked at Theo, at the child I had raised alone, the best thing I'd ever done. He's extraordinary, brilliant, curious, kind. He asks questions about everything. How things work, why people make the choices they do, what makes something truly meaningful versus just existing. He gets that from you. Your need to understand what drives people, maybe. I smiled despite everything. Or maybe from you, your analytical mind. What else? He loves science, builds things constantly. Last month he constructed a working model of the solar system with motorized orbits. He's 8, and he understands gravitational pull. Beckett's expression was wonder mixed with grief. He's been doing all of this, and I wasn't there to see it. No, you weren't. The words hung between us, an acknowledgement of everything that had been lost. Does he know about me? He knows he has a father. He's been asking more questions lately. Why he doesn't look like me. Whether he'll ever meet you. What do you tell him? That it's complicated. I met Beckett's eyes. That someday when he's older, I'll explain everything. Is it still complicated? I looked at this man who had been everything to me once, who had just learned he had a son, who had walked away from his family's empire because of me, and I had never known. Everything about this is complicated, Beckett. It doesn't have to be. How can you say that? You're a billionaire CEO. I'm a single mother who built a small firm in Portland. We're from completely different worlds. That hasn't changed. What's changed is that we have a son. His voice was firm. A son who's lying in a hospital bed fighting for his life. A son who deserves to have both his parents. Doesn't that matter more than complicated? Before I could answer, Theo stirred. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then sharpening as he looked around the hospital room. Mom? His voice was weak but clear. What happened? Why am I in the hospital? I moved to his bedside immediately, taking his hand gently. You got sick, sweetheart, during play practice. But the doctors are taking good care of you. Theo's gaze shifted to Beckett, and I watched as my son saw his father for the first time. There was curiosity in his expression, but no fear. Theo had always been remarkably observant, able to read people with uncanny accuracy. Who's that? Theo asked, looking at Beckett with those storm-gray eyes that were identical to the man standing beside his bed. Beckett moved closer, and I could see him struggling with emotion. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. I'm Beckett. I'm a friend of your mother's. Theo studied him with the intensity of someone much older. You have eyes like mine. I do. Beckett's voice was rough. And dark hair like mine. That's right. Are you here to help me? I hope so. I have the same rare blood type you do. If I'm a match, I can give you some of my blood to help you get better. Theo considered this with his usual thoughtful logic. Like sharing. Exactly like sharing. That's nice of you. Theo's eyes were starting to drift closed again. Sharing blood is probably the nicest thing you can share with someone. I watched Beckett's face crumple as he fought not to cry in front of our son. He reached out and gently touched Theo's hand. I would share anything with you, Theo. Why? Theo asked with that direct honesty children have before the world teaches them to hide their questions. Because you're a very special person who deserves to be healthy and happy. Mom says I'm special too. Theo's words were starting to slur as exhaustion pulled at him. She says I got my brain from someone important. Beckett glanced at me, and I could see the question in his eyes. Your mom is very wise. Beckett's voice was tender. Get some rest now, okay? Save your strength. Okay. Theo's eyes closed, and within moments his breathing had evened out into sleep. Beckett stood there staring at our son, tears streaming down his face that he made no effort to hide. He's perfect. The words came out broken. He's absolutely perfect, and I've missed 8 years of his life. I felt my own tears starting to fall. Beckett, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I'm sorry I believed your father instead of trusting you. I'm sorry I took those years from you. Why did you? He turned to look at me, and the pain in his eyes was devastating. Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? Why did you disappear so completely I couldn't find you? Because I thought you had chosen your family's expectations over me. Because I heard your father call me a gold digger, and you didn't defend me strongly enough. Because I saw that engagement announcement, and it confirmed every insecurity I had about not belonging in your world. So, you ran. So I ran. I wiped tears from my cheeks. And then I found out I was pregnant, and I had a choice to make. Tell you and force my way into a world that would always see me as an outsider, always judge my son as a mistake, or raise him on my own terms, in my own world, where he would never doubt that he was wanted and loved. You could have told me and trusted me to handle my family. Could I? Your father made it very clear what he thought of me. And you, despite your protests, were still part of that world, still running that company, still attending those social events, still living a life I could never fit into. Beckett was quiet for a long moment. You're right. I was still part of that world. But Sloan, I walked away from all of it. The day after you left, I cut every tie to my father and his empire. I started over from nothing because I couldn't stomach being part of a family that had driven you away. I didn't know. How could I know? You could have answered one of my 300 phone calls. You could have read one of my emails. You could have trusted that what we had was worth fighting for instead of running at the first sign of trouble. His words hit hard because they were true. I had run. I had let fear override trust. And in doing so, I had robbed all 3 of us of something precious. If you're feeling the weight of this story, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss what happens next. And drop a comment. Have you ever made a choice you regretted? Or just let me know where you're watching from. Say I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline. Let me know you're here. Dr. Patterson returned, breaking the heavy silence between us. His expression was carefully neutral, but I could see something in his eyes. Hope, maybe. Mr. Rhodes, Miss Harper, we have the preliminary results. My heart stopped. This was it. This was the moment that would determine whether my son lived or died. You're a perfect match, Mr. Rhodes. Dr. Patterson's professional demeanor cracked into a smile. Your blood is compatible in every way. We can begin the transfusion immediately. The relief was so intense I felt my knees go weak. Beckett caught my arm, steadying me. Thank God. His voice was rough. When can we start? I'd like to begin within the hour. The process will take approximately 3 hours. You'll be in a bed next to your son, connected by the transfusion equipment. It's completely safe for you, though you may feel some fatigue afterward. I don't care about fatigue. Beckett's focus was absolute. Whatever he needs, I'll give him. Then let's get you prepped. Dr. Patterson gestured toward the door. We have a preparation room where you can change and we'll get you set up with an 4-line. Beckett nodded but turned back to look at Theo one more time before leaving. His expression was a mixture of love, grief, and fierce determination. I'm not going anywhere. He said it to me, but I knew he was really saying it to our son. I'm going to save him, and then we're going to figure out how to be a family. He left with Dr. Patterson, and I sank back into the chair beside Theo's bed. My hands were shaking from adrenaline and relief, and the emotional whiplash of the last hour. Everything I thought I knew had been turned upside down. Beckett had never been engaged. He had walked away from his family for me. He had spent 6 years building a new empire from scratch rather than be part of the world that had rejected our love. And I had never known, because I had run instead of fighting, because I had believed the worst instead of trusting the best. Mom? Theo's eyes were open again, watching me with that uncanny perception he had. I'm here, baby. That man. Beckett. He's not just your friend, is he? My heart started pounding. Theo was too smart for his own good sometimes. Why do you say that? Because you look at him the way people in movies look at each other, when they're trying not to cry because they love each other so much, out of the mouths of babes. I took a deep breath. You're right. Beckett isn't just my friend. He's someone very special. How special? There was no point in lying. Not anymore. Not when Beckett was about to spend 3 hours connected to Theo by. medical equipment, literally giving his blood to save our son's life. Theo, sweetheart, Beckett is your father. Theo's eyes went very wide. He stared at me, processing this information with the seriousness he brought to all important questions. My dad? The dad I've been asking about? Yes, he's here. He came as soon as I called him, as soon as he knew you needed help, but I thought he lived far away. I thought he was too busy to see me. The pain in my chest was almost unbearable. He didn't know about you, Theo. I never told him. That was my mistake, my choice. But as soon as he found out you existed and that you needed help, he got on a helicopter and flew here immediately. Why didn't you tell him about me? It was a question I would have to answer eventually, but right now I didn't have the words to explain the complicated mix of fear and hurt and pride that had led to that choice. That's a long story, sweetheart. A grown-up story that I'll tell you when you're older. But what I want you to know right now is that your dad is here, and he's going to help you get better. How? He has the same rare blood type you do. He's going to give you some of his blood in a transfusion. It's going to make you strong and healthy again. Theo was quiet for a moment, absorbing this. Then he asked the question that broke my heart. Does he want to be my dad? Or is he just helping because I'm sick? Tears spilled down my cheeks. Oh, baby, he wants to be your dad more than anything. He just found out you exist an hour ago, and he's already in love with you. I could see it on his face when he looked at you. Really? Really? I smoothed his hair back gently. Your dad is a good man, Theo. He would have been part of your life from the beginning if I had told him about you. The fact that he wasn't is my fault, not his. Are you going to let him be part of my life now? Yes, if you want that. I do. I've always wanted a dad. Theo's voice was getting sleepy again. Is he going to live with us? I don't know, sweetheart. We have a lot to figure out, but he's going to be in your life. That I can promise. Good. Theo's eyes drifted closed. I'm glad he has gray eyes like me. I always wondered if I got them from him. You got a lot of things from him. Your intelligence, your curiosity, your determination. What did I get from you? My stubbornness, my independence, my artistic side. That's pretty good. Theo smiled without opening his eyes. We make a good team, Mom. The best team. I kissed his forehead gently. Now rest. Dad is going to be here soon to start helping you get better. Okay. Love you, Mom. Love you too, baby. More than anything in this world. He drifted back to sleep, and I sat there trying to process everything that had happened in the space of 2 hours. This morning I had been Sloane Harper, single mother, successful entrepreneur, living a carefully constructed life that didn't include Beckett Rhodes. Now Beckett was back, about to give his blood to save our son, and everything I had built on the foundation of his absence was crumbling. But maybe that wasn't a bad thing. Maybe it was time to stop running. Time to stop letting fear make my decisions. Time to see if the love we had once shared could be rebuilt into something even stronger. The door opened and Beckett came in wearing a hospital gown, followed by 2 nurses with equipment. They wheeled in another hospital bed and positioned it next to Theo's. We're going to get you set up now, Mr. Rhodes. One of the nurses was efficient and kind. This will take a few hours, so try to get comfortable. Beckett climbed onto the bed, and I watched as they inserted a 4-line into his arm. He didn't flinch, didn't show any sign of discomfort. His entire focus was on Theo. Once both 4 lines were in place, the nurses connected them to the transfusion equipment. Beckett's blood would flow through tubes and filters and into our son's body, quite literally giving Theo life. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Starting the transfusion now. The nurse checked all the connections one final time. Mr. Rhodes, you may feel some lightheadedness as we proceed. That's completely normal. Just let us know if you experience any discomfort. I will. The machine hummed to life, and I watched as Beckett's blood began its journey through the clear tubes toward our son. Beckett turned his head to look at Theo, and the expression on his face was so full of love and wonder that it took my breath away. Tell me about him. Tell me everything I've missed. So I did. I told him about the pregnancy, about going through labor alone when my parents' flight got delayed, about the first moment I held Theo and knew I would do anything to protect him, about sleepless nights and first words and first steps. I told him about Theo's first day of school, how he had cried because he thought I wouldn't be there when he got home, and how I had waited on the porch with cookies to hear about everything he had learned. about parent-teacher conferences where teachers raved about Theo's intelligence and creativity, about science fairs and art projects and the thousand small moments that made up a childhood. Beckett listened to every word, his expression shifting between joy at learning about his son and grief at everything he had missed. "He's been asking about you more lately." I said it gently, wanting to know why he doesn't look like me, whether he'll ever meet his father. "What did you tell him?" "That it was complicated, that someday I'd explain." I paused. "I was wrong, Beckett. I thought I was protecting him by keeping you away, but I was really just protecting myself." "From what?" "From having to face you again, from having to risk loving you and losing you again, from having to admit that maybe I had been wrong to run." "You weren't wrong to run." Beckett's voice was quiet. "I failed you, Sloan. I should have been stronger against my father. I should have told you immediately about his pressure tactics. I should have made you feel secure enough in us that you didn't feel the need to disappear. We both made mistakes." "Yes, but we have a chance to do better now. For him." He looked at Theo with such tenderness it made my chest ache. "He deserves better than the choices we made out of fear and pride." Before I could respond, Theo's eyes opened. He looked at the tubes connecting him to Beckett, then at his father's face. "You're really my dad?" "I really am." Beckett's voice was gentle. "I'm sorry I wasn't there before, Theo, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Mom says you have gray eyes like me. I do. And you have my dark hair. And apparently my curiosity about how things work. Mom says you're really smart. Your mom is really smart too. That's why you're brilliant. You got the best parts of both of us." Theo was quiet for a moment, studying Beckett's face with that intense focus he brought to everything. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you love my mom?" The question caught both of us off guard. Beckett's eyes met mine across the space between our beds. "That's a very personal question, Theo. But do you?" Theo wasn't going to be deflected. "Because I think you should. She's really great. I know she is. And she's been sad sometimes. When she thinks I'm not watching, she looks at old pictures and cries." Beckett's expression shifted, pain and something like hope mixing together. "I've been sad too, for a very long time. Because you missed us?" The question was so direct, so innocent, and so cutting that Beckett had to close his eyes for a moment. "Because I missed your mom. I didn't know you existed, but yes, I think part of me has been missing you too. Missing the family I should have had. Well, you found us now." Theo stated it like a simple fact. "So you don't have to be sad anymore. If only it were that simple." It is that simple. Theo's 8-year-old wisdom was relentless. "You love Mom. Mom loves you. I want a dad. You want to be my dad. That's all that matters. What about all the complicated parts?" I asked gently. "What complicated parts?" Theo looked at me like I was being deliberately obtuse. "The parts about Dad living in Seattle and us living in Portland. About his work and my work. About whether we can trust each other after everything that happened. Those aren't complicated. Those are just details." Theo dismissed my concerns with a wave of his hand that would have been imperious if he wasn't connected to multiple 4 lines. "Details can be figured out. Love is what matters." Beckett made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Your son is remarkably wise." "Our son," I corrected softly. "Our son," Beckett repeated, and the words seemed to settle something in him. "Our brilliant, wise, perfect son." We sat in companionable silence as the transfusion continued. Nurses came and went, checking vital signs, adjusting equipment. Dr. Patterson stopped by to monitor progress and reported that everything was going exactly as it should. 2 hours into the transfusion, Theo's color had already started to improve. The grayish pallor was fading, replaced by a healthier flush. His vital signs were strengthening, his blood pressure rising to normal levels. "It's working." I could hear the relief in my own voice. "The transfusion is actually working." "Of course it's working." Beckett's voice was tired but satisfied. "He's getting what he needs. He's getting his father's blood, literally becoming part of you. He's always been part of me. I just didn't know it." Another hour passed. Theo drifted in and out of sleep, sometimes waking to ask Beckett questions about his life, his work, what he liked to do for fun. Beckett answered every question with complete honesty, clearly savoring this chance to connect with his son. "Dad?" Theo said at one point, testing out the word. "Yes?" Thank you for coming to save me. Beckett's voice was rough with emotion. Thank you for existing. You're the best thing I never knew I had. When I get better, can we do things together? Like go to science museums and build stuff? We can do whatever you want. Museums, building projects, anything. I have 8 years of missed time to make up for. You can't make up for time that's already gone. Theo's logic was unassailable. But you can make the future really good. You're right. So let's make the future really good. Deal. They shook hands solemnly, the gesture made awkward by the IV lines but somehow deeply meaningful. Finally, after 3 hours, Dr. Patterson returned to supervise the end of the transfusion. We're going to disconnect you now, Mr. Rhodes. You did beautifully. The transfusion was a complete success. The nurses carefully removed the 4 lines and bandaged both Beckett and Theo's arms. Beckett sat up slowly, clearly feeling the effects of the blood loss, but he waved away offers of assistance. I'm fine. How is Theo? Your son's vital signs have improved dramatically. Dr. Patterson was smiling. His blood count is rising. His organs are responding well. With continued monitoring and management, he should make a full recovery. The relief was so intense I felt tears streaming down my face. Beckett stood up, steadied himself, then moved to Theo's bedside. You're going to be okay. He smoothed Theo's hair back gently, the gesture so natural it was like he had been doing it for years. You're going to be healthy and strong. Because of you. Theo looked up at his father with complete trust. You saved my life, Dad. You saved mine too. Beckett's voice broke. I just didn't know it until today. This is beautiful and everything, Theo said with the practical tone of an 8-year-old. But can someone get me some food? I'm really hungry. We all laughed, the tension breaking into something lighter. Hunger is a great sign. Dr. Patterson was making notes on Theo's chart. It means your body is recovering and needs fuel. I'll have the nurses bring you something appropriate. Can I have pizza? Let's start with something a little easier on your system. Maybe some soup and crackers. Theo made a face but didn't argue. As Dr. Patterson left, Beckett sank into the chair on the opposite side of Theo's bed from where I sat. For the first time, we were here together as parents. Both of us focused on our son. Mom? Dad? Theo looked between us. Are you going to fight about the complicated stuff now? Not right now, I said gently. Right now, we're just going to focus on you getting better. But you will talk about it, right? Because I want you to figure it out. I don't want Dad to disappear again. I'm not disappearing. Beckett's promise was firm. Whatever your mom and I need to work through, I'm going to be part of your life from now on. That's not negotiable. Good. Theo settled back into his pillow, satisfied. Because I have a lot of questions about science and building things, and Mom is really smart, but she's not as good at the technical stuff. I tried to look offended. Excuse me, I'm excellent at technical stuff. You're excellent at creative stuff, Theo corrected. Dad can help with the engineering parts. He had already slotted us into roles, already built a family structure in his mind. The nurse brought soup and crackers, and Beckett and I watched as Theo ate with an appetite that confirmed he was truly on the mend. Color continued to return to his face, and his movements had more energy. After he finished eating, Theo yawned hugely. I think someone needs to sleep, I said gently. Will you both be here when I wake up? I'll be here. I promised. Theo looked at Beckett. I'm not going anywhere. Beckett reached over and took Theo's hand. I promise. Satisfied, Theo closed his eyes and almost immediately fell into a deep, healthy sleep. The kind of sleep that came with healing, not illness. Beckett and I sat on opposite sides of our son's bed, both of us exhausted, both of us processing everything that had happened in the space of 6 hours. Thank you. I said it quietly, not wanting to wake Theo. Thank you for coming. Thank you for saving him. He's my son. Beckett's voice was equally quiet. There's nothing I wouldn't do for him. I know that now. Do you? Because 6 hours ago you thought I was engaged to someone else. You thought I had chosen my family's expectations over you. You thought I wouldn't want to be part of Theo's life. The accusations were gentle but pointed. I was wrong. About so many things. I took a shaky breath. I heard what I expected to hear, instead of trusting what we had. I ran instead of fighting. I kept your son from you because I was scared. Scared of what? Scared of not being enough. Scared of your world rejecting me and our child. Scared of loving you so much that losing you would destroy me. You did love me. It wasn't a question. I never stopped. The admission hung between us, raw and honest. I never stopped either. Beckett's storm-gray eyes held mine. Every woman I met, I compared to you. Every date felt like a betrayal of what we had. I built an empire and had no one to share it with because the only person I wanted was gone. I'm sorry. I'm sorry too, for not being strong enough against my father, for not making you feel secure in us, for all the ways I failed you. We sat in the quiet hospital room, with our son sleeping peacefully between us, and let 6 years of grief and regret wash over us. What happens now? I asked finally. Now. Beckett looked at Theo with such love it made my chest ache. Now we do what Theo said. We figure out the details. I relocate to Portland, or you move to Seattle, or we find some compromise. I learn how to be a father. We learn how to co-parent. And maybe, if you're willing, we figure out if what we had can be rebuilt into something even better. Just like that. Just like that. Unless you have objections. I have concerns. Tell me. I'm concerned that we've both changed. That what we had was young love that won't survive the reality of CO parenting and complicated logistics and all the ways we hurt each other. Those are valid concerns. What else? I'm concerned that Theo will get attached to the idea of us being together and be devastated if it doesn't work out. Also valid. Anything else? I'm concerned that I'll fall in love with you all over again, and you'll realize that the reality doesn't match the memory. Beckett was quiet for a long moment. Sloan, I'm already in love with you all over again. It took approximately 30 seconds of hearing your voice on the phone for me to know that. The rest is just details. There are a lot of details. Then we'll take it slowly. We'll date like normal people. We'll figure out custody arrangements and Keo parenting. We'll let Theo see us building something healthy instead of rushing into something that might not last. How slowly? As slowly as you need to feel safe. He paused. But Sloan, I'm not the same man I was 6 years ago. I've spent those years building a company according to my values, not my father's. I've learned the difference between what looks good on paper and what actually matters, and I know, without any doubt, that you and Theo matter more than anything else. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that love really could be enough this time. Ask me in 6 months. The words came out before I had fully thought them through. Ask you what? Ask me if I'm ready to build something permanent. Give us 6 months of CO parenting, of learning who we are now, of seeing if this can really work. And then, if we're both still sure, we can talk about forever. Beckett smiled, and it was like the sun coming out after days of rain. I can work with 6 months. We sat together in the quiet hospital room, watching our son sleep. And for the first time in 6 years, I felt something like hope. The next morning brought sunshine streaming through the hospital windows and the sound of Theo's laughter. A sound I had been terrified I might never hear again. He was sitting up in bed, animated and energetic in a way that made Dr. Patterson beam with professional satisfaction. The improvement is remarkable. Dr. Patterson was reviewing Theo's latest blood work. His red blood cell count has stabilized. His organ function is returning to normal. If he continues progressing like this, we can discharge him tomorrow with a care plan for outpatient management. Tomorrow? I felt a wave of relief so powerful it made me dizzy. He can really come home tomorrow? Barring any unexpected complications, yes. Dr. Patterson smiled at Theo. You're a very lucky young man. And you have a very generous father. Beckett was sitting in the chair beside Theo's bed, where he had spent the entire night. He had refused to leave, had waved away my suggestions that he go to a hotel and get proper rest. He looked exhausted, still pale from the blood donation, but he was smiling. I'm the lucky one. Beckett's hand rested on Theo's shoulder. I got to meet my son. Dr. Patterson left to check on other patients, and Beckett turned to Theo with an expression of pure joy. So what do you want to do when you get out of here? Everything. Theo's enthusiasm was infectious. I want to go to the Science Museum and the planetarium, and I want to show you my room and all my projects, and I want you to meet my friends, and I want to build something together. Beckett laughed. That's a lot of everything. We have a lot of time to make up for. The simple statement carried weight far beyond an 8-year-old's usual concerns. Theo understood in his wise way that they had missed years together. But instead of dwelling on what was lost, he was focused on what could be gained. You're right. Beckett's voice was soft. So let's make the most of every moment from now on. I watched them together, seeing the ease with which they connected. It was like watching two halves of the same whole finally coming together. They had the same mannerisms, the same way of tilting their heads when thinking through a problem, the same intensity when something captured their interest. Mom? Theo turned those storm-gray eyes on me. Can Dad come home with us when I get discharged? The question caught me off guard. Beckett's eyes met mine, and I could see he was leaving the decision entirely to me. Dad lives in Seattle, sweetheart. He has work there. Actually, Beckett said carefully, I've been thinking about that. My company can be run remotely from anywhere. The beauty of technology businesses is that physical location isn't as important as it used to be. You'd move to Portland? I tried to keep the surprise out of my voice. I'd move to Antarctica if that's where my son was. Portland is hardly a sacrifice. It's actually a beautiful city with excellent schools and a thriving business community. But your whole life is in Seattle. My whole life is wherever Theo is. Beckett's voice was firm. Everything else is just logistics. Theo was watching this exchange with barely contained excitement. So, you'll live with us? Not right away, I said gently, shooting Beckett a look. Dad and I agreed to take things slowly. But he'll get a place in Portland so he can be close by and spend time with you regularly. How close by? We'll figure out the details. Beckett smoothly intervened. But close enough that I can see you whenever you want. School pickups, weekend projects, dinner together, all of that. What about holidays? Theo's questions were relentless. Will you be there for Christmas and my birthday and Thanksgiving? If you want me there, I'll be there. I want you there. Theo stated it like an undeniable fact. For all of it. Every birthday from now on, every holiday, every important thing. Then I'll be there. Theo settled back against his pillows, satisfied. Good, because I have 9 birthdays to make up for, including the one next month. Your birthday is next month? Beckett looked stricken. When? September 20 to 3rd. I supplied the information quietly. September 20 to 3rd. Beckett repeated, committing it to memory. What do you want for your 9th birthday? A dad who shows up. Theo said it matter-of-factly. That's the best present. I watched Beckett's face crumple with emotion. He reached over and pulled Theo into a careful hug, mindful of the remaining 4 lines. You have that. I promise you have that. They held each other, father and son, and I had to look away because the tears were blurring my vision. A nurse came in to check Theo's vitals, breaking the emotional moment. She was young and friendly, commenting on how much better Theo looked. Your family has been through quite an ordeal. She was adjusting his foredrip, but it looks like everything turned out well. Family. The word hung in the air. We were a family, not in the traditional sense, not in the way I had imagined when I first discovered I was pregnant. But we were Theo's family, the people who loved him most in the world. After the nurse left, Beckett's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and sighed. I need to take this. It's my assistant. Give me 5 minutes? Take your time. I assured him. He stepped out into the hallway, and I was alone with Theo for the first time since Beckett had arrived. You like him, don't you? Theo asked immediately. Of course I like him. He's your father. No, I mean you like him, the way people like each other in romance movies. I should have known I couldn't hide anything from my perceptive son. It's complicated, Theo. You keep saying that, but it doesn't look complicated. You look at each other the way people who love each other look at each other. We did love each other, a long time ago. So what happened? We made mistakes. We hurt each other. We let other people's opinions matter more than what we felt. But you still love him now. It wasn't a question. Theo stated it with the certainty of someone who saw what adults tried to hide. Yes, I admitted it out loud for the first time. I still love him. And he still loves you. I can tell. How can you tell? The way he looks at you when you're not watching. Like you're the most important thing in the room. Even more important than me, and I'm the one who's sick. I laughed despite myself. You're very observant. I'm smart. I get it from both of you. Theo grinned. So, if you love each other, why are you waiting? Because love isn't always enough. We need to make sure we can build something that lasts, something stable and healthy for you. I'm 8, not stupid. Theo's bluntness was typical. I know you're worried about messing it up, but you know what's worse than trying and maybe failing? What? Not trying and definitely missing out on being happy. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just notice it more when I say things you need to hear. Beckett came back into the room, slipping his phone into his pocket. Everything okay? I asked. Everything's fine. Just some contract negotiations that my team can handle without me. He sat back down beside Theo's bed. So, what did I miss? Mom admitted she still loves you. Theo announced with zero filter. Beckett's eyes snapped to mine, surprise and hope warring in his expression. Theo, my voice was a warning. What? It's true. And you said I should always tell the truth. There's truth, and then there's appropriate timing. If not now, when? Theo looked genuinely confused. You almost lost me yesterday. That seems like a good time to be honest about important stuff. He had a point. A terrifying, uncomfortable, absolutely valid point. Your son makes a compelling argument. Beckett's voice was careful, but I could see the emotion underneath. I took a deep breath. Fine. Yes, I still have feelings for you, Beckett. Strong feelings. But that doesn't change the fact that we need to be smart about this. We need to think about Theo and what's best for him. What's best for me is having parents who love each other and aren't afraid to admit it. Theo interjected. Just putting that out there. Noted. Beckett's lips quirked into a smile. But your mom is right. We need to do this properly. Build a foundation based on trust and communication, not just feelings. Boring but responsible. Theo sighed dramatically. Fine. You can take it slow, but not too slow. I want you guys figured out before I'm old enough to drive. We have 7 years. I'll see what I can do. Beckett's tone was light, but his eyes on me were serious. The rest of the day passed in a strange sort of domestic normalcy. Beckett went out and returned with breakfast for all of us. Real food from a local cafe, not hospital cafeteria offerings. We ate together, the three of us, and it felt so natural it was almost frightening. Theo's friends from school sent get-well videos that made him laugh. His teacher sent homework, which made him groan. Beckett helped him with a math worksheet, and I watched them work through problems. Together, their heads bent over the paper in identical postures of concentration. My parents called, and I had to explain that yes, Beckett Rhodes was here. Yes, the Beckett Rhodes. Yes, he was Theo's father. Yes, they had a lot of questions, and no, I couldn't answer them all right now. If this story is hitting you in the feels, make sure you're subscribed to Mr Hearthline Stories. We bring you narratives that matter, stories about real love and second chances and the courage to choose family over fear. Hit that like button and comment below. Tell me, have you ever gotten a second chance you didn't expect? Or, just let me know where you're watching from. Say I'm with you, Mr Hearthline. That evening, as Theo dozed off after dinner, Beckett and I finally had the conversation we had been avoiding all day. We sat in the family lounge down the hall, sharing terrible coffee from a vending machine, and faced the practical realities of what came next. I meant what I said about relocating to Portland. Beckett started, I've already had my assistant start looking at properties. Nothing too close to your house. I don't want to crowd you, but close enough to be available. You don't have to uproot your entire life. Yes, I do. If I want to be Theo's father, really be his father, I need to be present. That means living in the same city, being available for the daily stuff, not just weekend visits. What about your company? I have excellent people running the day-to-day operations. I can attend important meetings via video conference or fly back to Seattle when necessary, but my priority needs to be here. Your board of directors is going to have opinions about that. My board of directors works for me, not the other way around. And frankly, after years of being married to my work, it's time I had some balance. I studied his face, looking for signs that he was saying what he thought I wanted to hear, but he looked completely sincere. What about custody arrangements? I asked. Do we need lawyers? Formal agreements? Do you want lawyers and formal agreements? I don't know. This is all happening so fast. Yesterday morning I was a single mother. Now I'm co-parenting with someone I haven't spoken to in 6 years. We can do this however you're comfortable. Beckett's voice was patient. If you want formal legal agreements, we can draw them up. If you want to start informally and see how it goes, we can do that too. I'm not going to fight you, Sloan. I'm going to work with you. Why? Because you've been Theo's mother for 8 years. You know him better than anyone. You've made good choices for him. I trust your judgment. The simple statement of trust meant more than he probably knew. I want to start informally, I said after a moment. See how we navigate this together. We can always formalize things later if we need to. That works for me. And I want you to know. I paused, gathering courage. I kept you from Theo because I was scared and hurt and making decisions based on pain instead of logic. But you're a good father already. I can see it in how you look at him, how you talk to him, how you dropped everything to save him. He's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him. Beckett's voice was rough. And Sloan, I understand why you made the choices you did. I may not agree with them, but I understand them. My father did a lot of damage with his manipulations and prejudices. You had every reason to believe I would choose his world over you. But you didn't. No, I didn't. But you had no way of knowing that because I didn't make my position clear enough. I was trying to navigate family politics instead of just standing up and choosing you unequivocally. We both made mistakes. Yes. But we have a chance to do better now. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 6 years of hurt and misunderstanding settling between us. Beckett, what do you want? I asked finally. Not what you think I want to hear, not what's best for Theo. What do you actually want? He turned to look at me fully, those storm gray eyes intense and honest. I want to wake up in the same house as my son. I want to make him breakfast and drive him to school and help with homework. I want to be there for soccer games and science fairs and every mundane moment that makes up a childhood. And what about me? Where do I fit in that picture? You. He reached over and took my hand. You. I want to date properly. Take you to dinner, have actual conversations, learn who you are now instead of who you were 6 years ago. I want to court you like I should have the first time, without hiding it, without worrying about what anyone else thinks. Court me? Old-fashioned word for an old-fashioned concept. I want to win your heart properly this time. What if you already have my heart? Then I want to prove I'm worthy of keeping it. The sincerity in his voice made my chest ache. 6 months, I reminded him. We agreed to 6 months of taking it slow. 6 months of proper dating it is. He smiled. I can work with that. No rushing Theo into thinking we're getting back together. Agreed. No confusing him with mixed signals. Absolutely. And no breaking my heart again. The last part came out more vulnerable than I intended. Never again. Beckett's grip on my hand tightened. I swear to you, Sloan, I will spend every day proving that I'm someone you can trust with your heart. We sat together in the quiet lounge, holding hands, and I let myself hope that, maybe, just maybe, we could build something even better than what we had lost. The next day, Theo was discharged with a comprehensive care plan and an appointment schedule for follow-up visits. Beckett helped carry bags and medical supplies to my car, then surprised me by having a car service waiting. I'm going to head back to Seattle for a few days. He explained, I need to make arrangements for the relocation, delegate some responsibilities, pack up what I need. But I'll be back by the weekend. You promise? Theo's voice was small, vulnerable in a way he hadn't been since Beckett arrived. I promise. Beckett knelt down to Theo's eye level. I'm going to be back so often you'll get sick of seeing me. Impossible. They hugged, and I saw Beckett whisper something to Theo that made our son smile. Take care of your mom while I'm gone, okay? You're the man of the house for the next few days. I'm always the man of the house. Theo corrected. Now, I'm just sharing the job with you. Smart kid. I get it from my parents. The drive back to Portland was quiet. Theo slept most of the way, exhausted from the ordeal despite his improved health. I had time to think, to process everything that had happened in the space of 48 hours. 2 days ago, Beckett Rhodes had been a name I didn't speak, a memory I kept locked away, a chapter of my life I had closed. Now he was Theo's father, actively co-parenting, planning to relocate to Portland, talking about dating me properly. It was overwhelming and terrifying and, underneath all of that, achingly hopeful. When we got home, I got Theo settled on the couch with his favorite blanket and snacks within reach. Our house felt different now, like it was waiting for something, or someone to complete it. Mom? Theo asked as I sat beside him. Are you scared? Of what? Of Dad being part of our lives now, of things changing. Sometimes. Change is scary, even when it's good change. But you're going to let him in anyway? I looked at my son, at this brilliant, perceptive child who saw through every defense I tried to construct. Yes, I'm going to let him in. Good. Because I really like having a dad. Theo snuggled into my side. And I think you really like having him around too. I do. So it's a win-win. How did you get so wise about relationships at 8 years old? I watch a lot of movies, and I pay attention to people. You'd be surprised what you can learn when you actually notice things. Clearly, the next few days fell into a new rhythm. I worked from home while monitoring Theo's recovery. Friends and neighbors stopped by with food and well wishes. My parents drove up from Portland and met Theo for the first time since the hospital crisis. My mother took one look at me and knew. "You're in love with him again, aren't you?" I never stopped being in love with him. I admitted. I just got really good at pretending I was over it. And he feels the same? Yes. Then what's the problem? The problem is that we destroyed each other once. What if we do it again? What if you don't? My mother's logic was simple. What if you actually learn from your mistakes and build something stronger? That seems too optimistic. Sweetheart, you kept that man's son a secret for 8 years because you were too afraid to risk being hurt again. I'd say it's time to be brave instead of cautious. She was right, of course. But knowing I needed to be brave and actually being brave were two different things. Beckett called every night to talk to Theo. Long conversations about school, projects, science questions, and whatever else was on our son's mind. Then Theo would hand me the phone, and Beckett and I would talk. Just talk about his day, my day, the logistics of his relocation, neutral topics that slowly built familiarity. True to his word, Beckett was back in Portland by Friday. He had rented a furnished apartment 6 blocks from our house. Close enough to be available, far enough to respect boundaries. He picked Theo up Saturday morning for their first official father-to-son outing. The Science Museum, followed by lunch, followed by a trip to a bookstore where Theo could choose any books he wanted. I watched them drive away, Theo chattering excitedly in the passenger seat, Beckett listening with complete attention, and I felt something settle in my chest. This was right. Whatever happened between Beckett and me, this relationship between father and son was absolutely right. They came back 4 hours later, loaded down with books and stories. Theo was exhausted but happy, talking a mile a minute about the exhibits they had seen and the experiments they were going to try. Beckett stayed for dinner. I made pasta, nothing fancy, and we ate together at my kitchen table. It felt domestic and normal and terrifying. After Theo went to bed, Beckett and I sat on my front porch, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the neighborhood settle into evening quiet. "Thank you for today," I said. He had the best time. So did I. I forgot what it was like to see the world through a child's eyes. Everything is fascinating and full of possibility. That's Theo, endlessly curious. He gets that from both of us. Beckett smiled. Though his execution is much better. I just ask questions. He builds entire theories. We sat in comfortable silence, and I realized this was what I had missed most. Not the grand gestures or passionate declarations, but these quiet moments of simply being together. "Sloan?" Beckett's voice was careful. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. When you found out you were pregnant, what was your first thought?" I thought back to that day in the doctor's office, to the moment that had changed everything. My first thought was terror. Absolute, consuming terror. Because of me, because of everything, because I was carrying the child of a man I thought was engaged to someone else, because I was 26 years old with a startup company and no idea how to be a mother, because I knew that telling you would mean entering a world that had made it very clear I didn't belong. And your second thought? My second thought was that I was going to keep the baby no matter what, that whatever I had to do, whatever I had to sacrifice, I was going to give this child the best life possible. You succeeded. Theo is extraordinary. Theo is everything I could have hoped for and so much more. I wish I had been there. Beckett's voice was thick with emotion. For the pregnancy, the birth, the first years, I wish I had known. I know, and I'm sorry I took that from you. We can't change the past, but we can make sure the future is different. He reached over and took my hand, and we sat together in the gathering darkness, holding on to each other and the possibility of second chances. The next 6 months unfolded like a slowly blooming flower. Beckett was true to his word about everything. He showed up consistently, reliably, proving through daily action that he was committed to being Theo's father. He was there for school pickups, helping with homework, attending parent-teacher conferences. He learned Theo's routines, his preferences, his quirks. He built a relationship with our son that was entirely separate from his relationship with me. And he courted me, old-fashioned and deliberate, Dinner dates at quiet restaurants where we talked for hours. Weekend hikes where we rediscovered why we had fallen in love in the first place. Coffee meetings that stretched into entire afternoons. He sent flowers to my office with notes that made my staff tease me mercilessly. He remembered details from conversations, followed up on projects I mentioned, showed genuine interest in my work and my life. He met my friends, my parents, the people who made up my world in Portland, and he fit into that world seamlessly, not because he was trying to be someone different, but because he genuinely appreciated the life I had built. We didn't hide our relationship from Theo, but we also didn't rush it. We were affectionate but appropriate. We made it clear we were dating but not making promises we weren't ready to keep. Theo, for his part, was thriving. His health had stabilized completely with proper management. He was back to school, back to his projects, back to being a normal 8-year-old. Except now he had a father who showed up to science fairs and taught him to code and answered his endless questions about physics and engineering. 3 months into our careful rebuilding, Beckett took me to dinner. At the same restaurant where we had our first date 6 years ago. I noticed immediately and felt my heart start racing. "You remember?" I said as we were seated at a corner table. "I remember everything about us. Every conversation, every moment, every reason I fell in love with you." The waiter came and went. We ordered without really paying attention to the menu. "I have something I need to tell you," Beckett said once we were alone. "And I'm asking you to hear me out completely before you respond." My stomach dropped. That kind of preamble never led anywhere good. "Okay. 3 weeks ago, I had to update Theo's medical records for his school. They required a full genetic screening panel for his ongoing care management. I knew this already. We had both signed off on the testing. The results came back with something unexpected." Beckett pulled out his phone and showed me a document. "You and I both carry the same extremely rare recessive genetic variant, the same one that caused Theo's blood disorder." I scanned the medical jargon, not fully understanding. "Isn't that normal? If we both passed it to him?" "Sloan, the odds of 2 unrelated people both carrying this specific variant are astronomically low. We're talking less than a fraction of 1% of the population has it. So we were just unlucky. Or we're not entirely unrelated." He pulled up another document. I had genealogists research our family histories. "Sloan, we're 4th cousins." The words didn't make sense at first. "We're what?" "4th cousins. We share a common ancestor who immigrated from Ireland in 1847 during the famine." I stared at him, trying to process this information. "We're related?" "Very distantly. 4th cousins share less than 1% of DNA. It's completely legal, completely safe genetically. It happens all the time without people ever knowing. But it explains why we both carried the same rare genetic variant." My mind was reeling. How did I not know this? Because it's so distant that neither of our families probably made the connection. But here's the part I really need you to hear. Beckett pulled up a family tree on his phone. Our common ancestor was a woman named Sloan Rhodes. My name, my exact name. Your mother found this connection years ago when she was researching your family history. She told me about Sloan Rhodes when I was a teenager, about this woman who came to America with nothing but determination and courage, who built a life through sheer force of will, who refused to let society's expectations define her worth. I felt tears starting to form. Your mother knew we shared an ancestor? She knew about the genealogical connection. She didn't know about the genetic variant, or that I would fall in love with someone who shared our ancestor's name. But she always believed the story was significant. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? Because I didn't want you to think I was using some cosmic connection story to manipulate you into giving us another chance. I wanted to earn your trust through action, not genetics or fate. I sat back in my chair, trying to absorb the magnitude of what he was telling me. We were connected by blood and history long before we ever met. Our families had been intertwined for generations, separated by time and geography, only to come back together in us. There's more. Beckett's voice was gentle. I've had genetic counselors review everything. Theo's disorder is completely manageable, and any future children we might have would face the same minimal risks that any couple faces. Future children. The words hung between us, loaded with implication. I'm not proposing, Beckett said quickly. I know we agreed to 6 months and we're only 3 months in. But, Sloan, I needed you to know. We were meant to find each other, not because of fate or destiny, but because our families have been connected for generations. Because we're part of a story much bigger than ourselves. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My heart started pounding. This isn't an engagement ring. He opened the box to reveal an antique emerald ring. This is Sloane Rhodes's ring. Our ancestors. My mother kept it in our family archives. When I told her about you, about Theo, about everything, she sent it to me. She said it belongs to the next Sloane who's brave enough to build something meaningful against impossible odds. I stared at the ring, centuries old, connecting me to a woman I had never known but whose courage had shaped my very existence. I'm not asking you to marry me today. Beckett's voice was steady. I'm asking if someday, when you're ready, when you trust that this is real, you'll consider building a life with me. Not because of genetics or ancestors or cosmic connections, but because we choose each other every single day. Tears were streaming down my face now. That's the most complicated non-proposal I've ever heard. Is that a no? That's an ask me again in 3 months when our 6-month trial period is over. Beckett's smile was like sunrise. I can work with 3 months. He put the ring away, and we ate dinner and talked about everything except the revelation he had just shared. But it hummed between us, this knowledge that we were connected by more than chance, that our story had roots reaching back generations. When he drove me home that night, he walked me to my door like a proper gentleman. He kissed me gently, sweetly, without any pressure for more. Thank you for trusting me with this, I said against his lips. Thank you for hearing me out. 3 more months. 3 more months? He agreed. And then I'm asking you properly. I went inside and leaned against the closed door, my heart pounding, that antique ring burning in my mind's eye. We were 4th cousins, connected by blood and history, and a woman brave enough to cross an ocean for a better life. A woman whose name I carried, whose courage I had inherited, whose story had led directly to mine. If you believe in the power of connection, in the way our histories shape our futures, hit that like button. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that sometimes the families we're meant to have are written in our very DNA. And comment below, have you ever discovered an unexpected connection to someone important in your life? Or just tell me you're with me. Say I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline. The final 3 months of our trial period passed in a blur of deepening connection and growing certainty. Beckett proved himself over and over, not through grand gestures, but through consistency, through showing up when he said he would, through putting Theo first, through respecting my boundaries while making his intentions clear. We fell in love again, or maybe we had never fallen out of love and were just rediscovering how to trust it. I learned who he was now, not the young CEO desperate to prove himself, but a man who had built an empire according to his own values, a man who had walked away from his family's approval to maintain his integrity, a man who loved deeply and completely and wasn't afraid to show it. He learned who I was now. Not the insecure young woman afraid she didn't belong, but someone who had built a successful business and raised an extraordinary child. Someone who had learned to trust her own judgment and stand in her own power. 6 months to the day after Theo's medical crisis, Beckett took us to the beach. It was a Saturday in early spring, the Oregon coast dramatic and windswept and beautiful. Theo ran ahead, collecting shells and examining tide pools with the enthusiasm of someone who found the entire world endlessly fascinating. Beckett and I walked behind him, hand in hand, watching our son explore. 6 months, Beckett said quietly. 6 months. I agreed. Are you ready for me to ask you properly? My heart was pounding, but I felt none of the fear that had plagued me 6 months ago. Only certainty. Yes. He stopped walking and turned to face me. Then he did something that made my breath catch. He knelt right there on the beach, waves crashing behind him, our son playing in the distance. Sloane Harper, I'm not the man I was 6 years ago. I've learned the difference between what looks good on paper and what actually matters. I've learned that love requires daily choice, not just feeling. I've learned that the greatest privilege of my life is being Theo's father and loving you. He pulled out that velvet box with Sloane Rhodes's ring. Will you marry me? Not because of genetics or shared history or cosmic connection, but because I choose you. Every day, in every way, I choose you. Will you choose me back? Theo had noticed what was happening and came running back, breathless and excited. Are you proposing? Is Mom saying yes? Are we going to be a real family? I looked at my son's hopeful face, then at Beckett kneeling in the sand, then at the ring that connected me to centuries of brave women who had chosen love over fear. Yes, the word came out clear and strong. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, we're going to be a real family. Theo cheered, jumping up and down. Beckett stood and slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for me. We were a family, bound by love and history and the daily choice to show up for each other. The wedding was 6 months later, small and intimate, held in the backyard of the house we had bought together. Not my house or his house, but ours. A place where we could build our future. My parents were there, beaming. Beckett's mother came, elegant and warm, welcoming me properly into the family. Notably absent was James Rhodes, who had cut off contact with his son permanently when Beckett announced our engagement. I don't miss him. Beckett had told me honestly. I miss the father he could have been, but I don't miss the man he actually was. Theo served as ring-bearer and best man, wearing a suit he had designed himself with, pockets specifically engineered to hold interesting rocks and scientific equipment. The ceremony was simple. We stood under an arch decorated with flowers that Theo had helped choose, surrounded by the people who mattered most. Do you, Beckett Rhodes, take Sloane Harper to be your wife, promising to choose her every day, to support her dreams, and to build a life based on trust and communication? I do. Do you, Sloane Harper, take Beckett Rhodes to be your husband, promising to choose him every day, to trust his commitment, and to build a future based on love rather than fear? I do. By the power vested in me by the state of Oregon, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Ladies and gentlemen, the Rhodes family, Beckett, Sloane, and Theo, proving that some families are worth fighting for, even when the universe seems determined to keep them apart. We kissed to seal our marriage, and Theo cheered along with our small gathering of loved ones. During the reception, I found myself standing with Beckett, watching Theo play with the other children. Happy? He asked, his arm around my waist. Happier than I ever thought possible, even though we had to go through hell to get here. Especially because we went through hell to get here. It taught us what actually matters. And what actually matters? This, family, showing up, choosing each other when it would be easier to run. His hand moved to rest on my stomach, where our second child was growing. We had found out 2 weeks ago, and the genetic counselors had assured us that the risks were minimal with proper monitoring. Boy or girl? He asked. Too early to tell. Does it matter? Not even a little. Although Theo has opinions, let me guess. He wants a sister. He says he's had enough experience being outnumbered by males. Beckett laughed. His words, not mine. He's going to be an amazing big brother. He's already amazing in every way. We made something incredible together, Sloane. We did. And we're going to keep making incredible things. Theo ran over to us, breathless and happy. This is the best day ever, he announced. My parents are married. I'm going to be a big brother, and there's cake. Solid priorities. Beckett ruffled his hair. I learned from the best. We stood together, our family complete in a way it had never been before, and I thought about Sloane Rhodes, the woman who had crossed an ocean with nothing but courage, the woman whose blood ran in my veins, whose name I carried, whose legacy I was living. She had been brave enough to leave everything she knew for the possibility of something better. And now, generations later, I was brave enough to risk my heart again for the certainty of love. Mom? Theo was looking at me with those storm-gray eyes. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking about how lucky I am, how lucky we all are. We're not lucky, Theo corrected with his usual precision. We're brave. We chose each other when it would have been easier to stay apart. That's not luck. That's courage. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just notice it more when I say things that sound important. Beckett and I exchanged glances over our son's head, both of us trying not to laugh. That night, after the guests had left and Theo had finally crashed from exhaustion, Beckett and I sat on our back porch, sharing champagne and watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Theo hadn't gotten sick? If you'd never had to call me? Sometimes. I admitted. I think we might have gone our whole lives never reconnecting, never giving this another chance. Do you think that crisis was the universe forcing us to deal with what we'd been avoiding? I think that crisis was Theo inheriting a genetic disorder that brought his father into his life. Everything else, we chose. We chose well. We did. He pulled me closer, and I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Sloane? Yes, thank you. For what? For calling me. For being brave enough to risk seeing me again. For giving me a second chance with you and a first chance with our son. Thank you for showing up, for proving you were worth the risk. Always. His voice was a promise. For the rest of our lives, I'm showing up. And he did. Every day. Through Theo's childhood and into his teenage years. Through the birth of our daughter, Nora, who had Beckett's determination and my creativity. Through business challenges and family celebrations and all the ordinary moments that made up a life. The moral of this story reaches far beyond romance. It speaks to the very heart of what it means to be human, to be family, to be brave enough to risk everything for what truly matters. Never let pride prevent you from reaching out when someone you love needs help. I had to swallow 6 years of hurt to make that phone call, but it saved my son's life and changed all our futures. Never let fear of the past prevent you from building a beautiful future. We had hurt each other terribly, but we chose to try again instead of letting old wounds keep us apart. Never underestimate a child's wisdom to see simple truths that adults complicate. Theo saw what we were both too scared to admit, that we loved each other and belonged together. Sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the greatest crises. Theo's illness was the worst moment of my life, but it brought his father back to us and gave us the family we were meant to be. Sometimes the people we think we've lost forever are just waiting for the right moment to come home. Beckett spent 6 years as a memory, but he was always meant to be part of our lives. And sometimes love really can conquer all when it's supported by wisdom, patience, and the daily choice to put family above everything else. The secrets we keep to protect our hearts can become the bridges that connect us to our destiny. I hid Theo from Beckett to protect us from pain, but that secret ultimately brought us together stronger than before. Love requires bravery, the bravery to risk everything we've built alone for the possibility of something better together. The bravery to trust when we've been hurt. The bravery to choose vulnerability over safety. And sometimes the family we're meant to have is worth every moment of pain it takes to find them. Worth the heartbreak and the fear and the risk. Worth fighting for when everything seems impossible. Theo was right, all along. We weren't a found family or a lost family. We were a family that had to break apart to learn how to be whole together. We had to lose each other to understand what we were losing. We had to build separate lives to appreciate what we could build together. We had to face the possibility of never reconnecting to understand how much we needed each other. And sometimes that journey through pain to healing, through separation, to reunion, through fear to courage, that makes all the difference. Our story started with a secret I kept for 8 years. It could have ended in bitterness and blame and permanent separation. Instead, it became a testament to the power of second chances, to the importance of fighting for what matters most, to the beautiful truth that sometimes the families we're meant to have are worth waiting for, even if the wait breaks our hearts before it heals them. 5 years after our wedding, I stood in Theo's room helping him pack for science camp. He was 13 now, tall and brilliant and growing into an incredible young man. "Dad's outside," he said, stuffing clothes into a duffel bag with typical teenage efficiency. "He wants to talk to you about something." "About what?" He didn't say. But he has that look. What look? The look he gets when he's planning something important. I found Beckett in the backyard, watching Nora play in her sandbox. Our daughter was 5 with dark curls and an infectious laugh, and an absolute certainty that she could do anything. "Theo says you have a look. I might have a look." He pulled me close. "I've been thinking. Always dangerous. I've been thinking about Sloane Rhodes, our ancestor, the woman whose courage brought us together. What about her? She crossed an ocean for the possibility of a better life. She risked everything for her family. She did. I want to start a foundation in her name." He turned to face me fully. "A foundation that helps single mothers build businesses, that provides support and resources and capital for women trying to create better lives for their families." "Beckett, that's beautiful. You did it alone for 8 years. Built a successful company while raising Theo. I watched you navigate challenges that would have broken most people. Other women are doing the same thing right now, and they deserve support." I felt tears starting to form. "When did you start planning this?" "The day we got married. But I wanted to make sure the business model was sustainable before I mentioned it." "Of course you did. So what do you think? The Sloane Rhodes Foundation for Entrepreneurial Mothers? I think our ancestor would be proud." "I think it's perfect." "Good. Because I've already filed the paperwork. We launch next month." He kissed me, sweet and certain, and I marveled at this man who had proven every day for 8 years that he was worthy of the second chance I had given him. Theo came outside, duffel bag in hand. Ready to go, Dad? Ready. Are you ready for 2 weeks of science camp? So ready. Theo grinned. But I'm going to miss you guys. We're going to miss you too. I hugged him tightly. Be safe, learn everything, and call us when you can. I will. Love you, Mom. Love you, Dad. He said it so easily, like Beckett had always been his father. Like those 6 years of absence had been erased by 8 years of presence. They drove away, father and son, talking animatedly about the camp curriculum. Nora ran over and grabbed my hand. Mommy, can we make cookies? Of course we can, baby. We went inside, and I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From that terrified young woman in a doctor's office, discovering she was pregnant and alone, to this moment, standing in a kitchen in a house I shared with the love of my life, about to make cookies with our daughter while our son went off to pursue his passions. It had taken a medical crisis to bring us together, a secret revealed at the worst possible moment, a phone call I didn't want to make to a man I thought I hated, but it had led to this, to family, to love that was stronger for having been tested, to a future built on choice rather than chance. And I realized that Theo had been right from the very beginning. Love wasn't complicated. We were the ones who made it complicated with our fears and our pride and our inability to trust. Love was actually very simple. It was showing up. It was choosing each other every day. It was being brave enough to risk everything for the people who mattered most. And when you found people worth showing up for, worth choosing, worth risking everything for, you held on tight and never let go. I never told my billionaire CEO ex-husband about our son until the boy needed his rare blood type. And that moment of crisis became the greatest gift of our lives. The moment that brought us back together. The moment that proved love was worth fighting for. Sometimes the secrets we keep become the truth that sets us free. Sometimes the people we run from are exactly the people we're meant to run toward. And sometimes the family we're destined to have requires us to be brave enough to face our greatest fears. Because on the other side of that fear, on the other side of that risk, on the other side of that impossible phone call, was everything we ever needed. Each other. And that, in the end, made every moment of pain, every year of separation, every second of doubt, absolutely worth it. The end. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that second chances are possible, and that love is worth fighting for, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to Mr Hearthline Stories so you never miss these emotional journeys that remind us what truly matters in life. Hit that like button to let me know this story resonated with you. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to choose love over fear, that families can be rebuilt, and that sometimes our greatest crises lead to our greatest blessings. And comment below. Tell me about your second chances. Tell me about the times you were brave enough to risk your heart. Or just let me know you were here with me on this journey. Say I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline, because your stories matter, your courage matters, and your willingness to believe in love, even when it seems impossible, that matters most of all. Until next time, remember that the best families aren't always the ones we're born into. Sometimes they're the ones we choose, the ones we fight for, the ones we're brave enough to build from broken pieces. Choose love, choose courage, choose family, and never, ever give up on second chances.